I always thought my wedding day would be perfect. Music, flowers, love, everything I dreamed of since I was a child. But what I didn't know was that my fiancé and my father had turned it into a nightmare long before I walked down the aisle. When I told this story to people, they didn't believe it at first. They said, "No way, that couldn't happen to a normal family." But betrayal doesn't care about family. It doesn't care about blood. It just waits quietly until the day you least expect it. My name is Ethan. I was engaged to Sophia, the woman I thought I would spend the rest of my life with. We'd been together for 3 years. She was warm, smart, and had a calm smile that made me believe everything was okay. My parents adored her, especially my father. At first, I thought it was a good thing. Dad was charming, the kind of guy people trust at first sight. He was my role model all my life. Successful, respected, always in control. I never thought he would cross the line that no father should. The first signs appeared 2 months before the wedding. Sophia started to act distant. She would stay up late texting, always turning her phone face down when I walked into the room. When I asked her who she was talking to, she just smiled and said, "Wedding stuff, honey." And I believed her, because love is blind, right? Then Dad started to change too. He called Mom directly about wedding details, things he never cared about before. At dinner, I caught them glancing at each other as if they were telling a joke I didn't know. One time, I walked into the kitchen and saw Mom laughing while Dad stood a little too close. I told myself I was imagining things. I didn't want to be a jealous husband to be, or blame others. But then, the night changed everything. It was late, almost midnight. Sophia said she was going out to see the decorator. Something wasn't right, so I followed her. I know it sounds crazy, but my instincts told me to. She drove through town, not near any decorator's office, and parked behind an old motel. I watched from inside the car, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it was going to burst out of my chest. 5 minutes later, another car pulled up. Silver. Familiar. My dad's. He got out, looked around, and then he smiled at her. Not a polite smile. Not a friendly smile. The kind a man would give a woman he shouldn't have met. She touched his arm. He leaned in. And right there, under the flickering lights of the motel, I saw everything I needed to see. My hands were shaking. Part of me wanted to rush out, scream, smash something. But another part, a colder, quieter part, whispered, "Not now! Not like this!" I drove home in silence, my mind replaying the image over and over again. The woman I was going to marry, and the man who had raised me together. When I got home, I sat in the dark until dawn. I kept hearing her voice, his laugh, the echo of betrayal in my head. By morning, something in me had changed. The love I once felt was gone, replaced by something sharp and quiet and patient. That's when I decided, if they want to play dirty, I'll play smarter. They'll get their wedding day, but it won't be the day they expect. That morning, when I looked at Sophia, something inside me snapped. She hummed as she brewed her coffee, as if nothing had happened. I sat there, clutching my phone, staring at the text message that had ruined my sleep. "You deserve to know the truth before you marry her." She noticed I hadn't said anything. "Are you okay?" she asked, pushing the cup toward me. I forced a smile. "Yeah, just post-wedding nerves." She smiled back, soft, calm, the way people say when they're hiding something. Right then, I decided not to confront her. Not yet. I needed proof. Real, undeniable proof. That afternoon, I drove to my parents' house, pretending to deliver the invitations. My mother greeted me with her usual warmth, but my father wasn't there, or at least that's what she said. When I asked, she hesitated before answering. My father left early, said he was meeting someone about catering. Party. The same excuse Sophia had used last week. My stomach twisted, but I said nothing. I kissed her cheek and left. I didn't go home. I drove to the old motel down the road, the one in the picture. It looked exactly as I remembered, peeling paint, flashing neon lights, and parked right outside was my father's silver sedan. I waited. The minutes seemed like hours. Then I saw them, walking out together, laughing. Sophia touched his arm the way she used to touch mine. It wasn't father-daughter. It wasn't innocent. It was intimate. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just picked up my phone, took a picture, and drove away. That was all the proof I needed. Sophia came home late that night again. I pretended to sleep. She crawled into bed, smelling faintly of whiskey and my father's perfume. The scent that had once been a hallmark of Sunday mornings was now poison. For the next few days, I was a ghost in my own life. I smiled when I was expected, laughed when I needed to, but inside I was counting every breath until my wedding day. Finally, I went to see my mother. When I walked in, she was folding laundry. "Mom," I said, "can we talk?" She looked up. Mothers always knew that. I showed her the picture. She froze. "What's going on?" "It's Dad," I whispered. "With Sophia." She stared at the screen, shaking her head. "No, your dad would never." But she stopped mid-sentence. I saw the truth dawning in her eyes. "When was this photo taken?" she asked. 3 days ago." She covered her mouth. "Oh my God." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "He's distant," she whispered. "He comes home late. I want to believe him." We sat there in silence, a mother and a son betrayed by the same man. Finally, she said, "I'll confront him." I stopped her. "No, not yet. Let me handle it." Her voice trembled. "Ethan, don't do anything you'll regret." I looked her straight in the eyes. "He made me do it." That night, I searched Sophia's phone while she slept. The password was still her birthday, and then the text messages appeared. At first, harmless. Then they appeared again. "Dad, you look beautiful today." "Sophia, you shouldn't have said that." "Dad, I can't help it. You make me feel alive." "Sophia, I promised it would end before the wedding." "Dad, I know, but watching you walk down the aisle, I might lose my temper." Each line was deeper than the last. They didn't end it out of guilt. They ended it to avoid being caught. I took screenshots of everything, the text messages, the time, the call logs, all the evidence I needed. And sitting there in the dark, I whispered, "You're both going to pay for this, and you'll never see any of it." The next morning, I felt calm, almost serene. Sophia recognized that. "Hey," she said, touching my arm. "Are you okay?" "Yeah," I said. "Just thinking about the vows." She laughed. "You better keep them." I smiled. "Oh, they'll never forget." That night, I called my dad. "Dad, I need your help with some wedding preparations." He chuckled. "Of course, son. What do you need?" "Come early. I've got a special surprise planned." He chuckled. "A surprise? You finally learned from the old man." "Yeah," I said softly. "Something like that." Little did he know that the surprise was him. That night, it started to rain. Sophia slept next to me, peacefully, as if nothing had ever fallen apart. I looked up at the ceiling and whispered, "Good night. Tonight is the last night I lie to you." Thunder rumbled outside, distant, heavy, maybe a warning. maybe applause. Either way, I was ready. In 3 days, on what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, they would know exactly what it felt like to be betrayed, in front of everyone they loved. The days leading up to the wedding felt like a dream that was slowly turning into a nightmare. Everyone smiled, congratulated us, told us how lucky we were to have found each other. And I smiled back, because that's what people do when they're hiding the truth. I was broken inside. Every moment with Sophia was fake. Every word my father said was like poison. They talked about our future, but all I heard were their secrets. At night, when Sophia slept next to me, I stared at the ceiling and wondered, did anything really exist? Did she ever love me? Or was I just a shell covering their shame? There were times when I almost confronted them. Once, she caught me looking at her from across the room. She smiled nervously. "You've been so quiet lately," she said. I wanted to scream, "Are you sleeping with my dad?" Instead, I whispered, "I'm just tired." I kept playing the role, the loving fiancé, the dutiful son, but every word, every smile, was just an act. And deep down, I hated myself for it. Because after all, a part of me still loved her. One night, I sat alone with a bottle of whiskey. The house was silent except for the sound of rain falling outside. I opened my laptop, staring at the half-finished wedding slideshow, the one that was supposed to be shown before the vows. Happy pictures, beach trips, birthdays, smiles. Now it was all lies. And then I realized that slideshow might not just be a memory. It might be the truth. My truth. I spent hours editing, replaced photos, added screenshots. First our engagement photo, smiling, perfect. Then a fade to a motel photo. Sophia and my dad laughing in the dark. Then the texts. Each one was set to soft background music, building tension. By 3 a.m., it was all done. A confession told in pictures. A perfect revenge, non-violent, non-fussy, but unforgettable. The next morning, I saw my mother. She looked tired, older. "Are you sure?" she asked. I nodded. "They don't deserve to live clean." Her eyes were filled with tears. "You're my son. Don't let hatred destroy you." I smiled sadly. "Mom, hate doesn't destroy me. They destroy me." The next few days passed like slow motion. Dress fittings, rehearsal dinners. Everyone laughed while I stood there, silently counting the hours. Then came the night before the wedding. Sophia lay next to me, scrolling through her phone. She looked so peaceful, maybe even happy. And for a moment, I almost collapsed. A small voice whispered, "Don't do this. Just go. Just go." But I couldn't, because leaving would mean letting them live their lie, and I'd heard enough lies for a lifetime. So instead, I whispered softly to her sleeping form, "Tomorrow, you'll see what love looks like when it's broken." She turned over, sighed, and fell into a deeper sleep. Outside, the wind howled, as if it knew what was coming. I closed my eyes and pictured the ceremony, the flowers, the guests, the music. And in the middle of it all, the truth, their truth, on a giant screen for all to see. No screaming, no fighting, just silence. Silence that was more painful than any words could describe. That was when I finally felt peace, a cold, dangerous peace. Because I knew the next day the wedding would go on exactly as planned, just not the way they expected. The morning of the wedding was surreal. The sky was blue, the air was crisp, the world almost too still, as if it knew what was coming. I looked at myself in the mirror, in my perfect black suit. I didn't see the groom. I saw a man about to bury the last of his life, When I arrived, everyone was smiling. Friends, relatives, colleagues, all gathered to celebrate love. If only they knew what kind of love they were celebrating. My father was there, laughing with guests, shaking hands, pretending to be proud. Sophia stood across the garden, radiant in white. For a moment, my chest tightened. She looked like everything I'd ever wanted. But then I remembered the motel lights, the texts, the lies, and the feeling vanished. She saw me and smiled softly. "Ready?" she asked. I nodded. "More than ever." She smiled. "You look nervous." "Just excited," I said, forcing a smile. Inside, the hall was breathtaking. White roses lined the aisle. A string quartet played softly, and behind the altar, a giant screen was hidden under a decorative cloth. No one noticed, not even her. The ceremony began. She walked toward me, her veil fluttering like a ghost. Each step echoed in my head. Each step brought her closer to the truth. When she reached me, the officiant began to read the vows. She spoke first, her voice sweet, trembling, perfect. She spoke of forever, of faith, of the life we would build together. Everyone smiled. My mother watched silently, tears welling up in her eyes. Then it was my turn. I took a breath, looked into Sophia's eyes, and said, "You taught me a lesson I'll never forget, about love and betrayal." A few guests giggled, thinking it was a joke. I smiled slightly. And today, I want to share that lesson with everyone. I nodded to the technician near the back. The lights dimmed. The screen flickered. Soft music played. Our song. The slideshow began. At first, everything was innocent. Photos of us smiling, holding hands, traveling together. Guests murmured happily. Then, the tone changed. The next image froze the room. A motel sign. Then a photo. My father and Sophia walking out together, laughing. A gasp echoed through the hallway. Someone dropped a drink. The next slide showed the messages, line by line. Her name, his name, words of guilt, longing, planning. Each line glowed brighter than life on the screen. Sophia's face paled. My father stood up, panic flashing in his eyes. "Turn it off!" he shouted. But no one moved. Everyone stared at the truth. Sophia tried to grab my hand. "Ethan, please. It's not what it seems." I pulled my hand back, my voice flat. "No, Sophia. It's what it seems." My father stepped forward. "Son, let's talk in private." I turned to him, calm, almost detached. "Privacy? You don't care about privacy when you destroy our family." The host stood there, not knowing what to do. The gasps, the whispers, the chaotic noise, all of it merged into a heavy silence. Then I turned to the guests. "I must take an oath today. So here it is." I looked straight at Sophia. "I swear I will never let anyone deceive me again." I turned to my father. "And I swear I will never be like you." The hall was silent. No one applauded. No one spoke. Only the soft music still played behind the screen. The same song that once meant love, now poisoned forever. My mother stood there trembling, but her eyes met mine. No anger, no shame, just quiet pride. She whispered, "Let's go." And we walked outside together. Behind me, Sophia sobbed, trying to speak. My father called my name, but I didn't turn around. Not once. Outside, the sky had darkened. Clouds rolled in. The wind picked up. When we reached the car, thunder boomed above us, loud, sharp, decisive. It was as if the universe had slammed the door shut on everything that had come before. I got in, started the engine, and drove away, leaving the wedding, the lies, the ghosts of what might have been. And for the first time in months, I felt free. The ride home was silent. The rain fell in thin sheets on the windshield, the wipers following my heartbeat. Mom sat beside me, silent, her hands trembling in her lap. Neither of us said anything. There was nothing left to say. When we finally reached the house, she turned to me. "Ethan," she said softly, "you didn't have to do that." I looked at her, my voice barely even. "Yes, I did," she sighed, her eyes sparkling. "You exposed them. But now? Revenge won't bring you peace." I smiled sadly. "It's not revenge anymore. It's the truth. And the truth deserves a witness." That night, I sat alone in the dark living room. The house was filled with echoes, laughter from old memories, the ghosts of a family that no longer existed. I stared at the framed photo on the shelf. Mom, Dad, and me at the beach when I was 10. We looked so happy. And maybe back then, we had been happy. A knock broke the silence. I opened the door and froze. It was my dad. He didn't look like the man who once dominated every room. His tie was gone. His face was pale. His eyes were sunken. "Ethan," he said softly, "please, we need to talk." I didn't move. "There's nothing more to say." He stepped closer. "I made a mistake. I didn't mean to hurt you." I smiled bitterly. "You didn't just hurt me. You ruined everything." He swallowed. "Sophia and I, it was just a normal thing. I was lonely." Confused. "Don't," I interrupted him. "Don't insult me." He ran a hand through his hair, shaking. "I humiliated you in front of everyone." "Good," I said. "Now you know what it feels like to be betrayed." For a moment, we just stared at each other, father and son, strangers under the same roof. His eyes were filled with regret. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I just hope someday you'll understand." I shook my head. "No, I'll never understand how a father could do that to his own son." He nodded slowly, accepting. "I think I deserved it," he whispered, then turned and walked away into the rain. When the door closed, I fell to the floor. My chest ached, but not from anger, but from something else. Something more empty. The next morning, Sophia called. At first, I didn't want to answer, but curiosity, or maybe closure, won. Her voice came through the line. "Ethan, please, I'm sorry." "Sorry?" I said. "For cheating? Or for getting caught?" She started to cry. "I never wanted it to happen. I thought I loved you. But he made me feel different." I closed my eyes, the words stinging more than I wanted to admit. "Then you two deserve each other," I whispered, "but I will never have your forgiveness." She sobbed. "Please don't hate me." I hesitated. "I don't hate you," I said. "I just don't care anymore." Then I hung up. For once, the silence didn't hurt. It felt cleansing. Finally. The days passed. People were talking. Of course, the wedding video was leaked online. Millions of strangers watched my heartbreak like a movie. But I didn't care. Because for me, it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about ending the lie. My mother finally filed for divorce. This time she didn't cry. "I spent years loving a man who wasn't real," she said. "I won't waste another minute." And for the first time I saw her smile. Not the kind that hides the pain, but the kind that begins to heal. One evening I sat on the porch, watching the sun set behind the trees. The world went quiet again. I thought about all that had happened. The love, the betrayal, the fire I had lit. And I realized something. Sometimes the truth destroys what you love, but it also sets you free. I took a deep breath, feeling the last weight in my chest lift. Maybe someday I will love again. Maybe not. But I know one thing for sure. I will never let betrayal define me again. because that wedding wasn't the end of my story. It was just the moment I finally started living my life. It's been 6 months since that wedding that I thought would never happen. 6 months since I watched the truth burn away everything I knew about love, family, and loyalty. And yet somehow, I'm still here. At first I didn't know how to move on. The house was so quiet. The nights were so long. Every corner reminded me of what I'd lost. But as the days passed, the silence began to feel less like emptiness and more like peace. I spent the morning walking in the park, coffee in hand, with no destination in mind, just breathing. For the first time, I didn't have to pretend to be okay with anyone. I didn't have to. Mom moved to a small apartment downtown. Mom started painting again, something she hadn't done in years. Sometimes I visit my mother on weekends. We sit by the window, watching the city lights, not saying much. We both lost something, but somehow we also found ourselves again. My father tried to reach out a few times. Voicemails, letters, apologies that I never responded to. Maybe someday I will. But forgiveness isn't a switch you flip, and it's done. It's a bridge you build, slowly, once the wound has stopped bleeding. Sophia has disappeared from my life completely. I hear she's moved to another state. I don't hate her. In a way, I feel sorry for her, because betrayal doesn't just destroy the person you hurt, it destroys you too. Sometimes, when I can't sleep, I think about that night. The screen lighting up the wedding hall, the faces, the gasps. I used to feel angry when I thought about it. Now, I just feel clear. It was the last moment I was no longer a victim of other people's choices. It was the day I started to make my own decisions. Last week, I drove past the road where the old motel used to be. It's gone now. Destroyed. In its place is a small field of wildflowers and tall grass swaying in the wind. I parked, got out, and stood there. The air was still, warm, full of life. It felt like the past had finally let me go. I picked a flower, a small white daisy, and put it on the ground. Not for them, but for me. For the person I was. People always believe that love has to be perfect. As I got back into the car, I realized something. Love isn't perfect. People aren't perfect. But the truth, no matter how painful, is always better than a beautiful lie. I don't know what my future holds. Maybe someday I'll love again. Maybe not. But I'm not afraid of that anymore. Because I've learned that the end doesn't come when they're sorry. It comes when you finally don't need them to be sorry anymore. So I drove away from that field, windows down, sunlight on my face. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel broken. I just felt free, and that was enough.